Well, we know that the national contest of the internal elections for the NPP is heating up as well, particularly for the general secretary slot of the party. Already we have 5 names, at least, that we know of, persons who have come out publicly to indicate their readiness to contest the seat later in July this year. So let's bring you a brief profile of some of the names that we have so far. Of course, the incumbent himself, John Boydu, is in that race. He's the current General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party. And then we also have some more names. Justin Kondia Frimpong, who's the Chief Executive Officer for the Youth Employment Agency. He is a young lawyer, as we understand. And we also have Charles Bissue in that race, former presidential staffer and also former secretary for the Interministerial Committee on Small-Scale Mining. Then we have Frederick Opariansa, who we know has been at least 4-time Member of Parliament for the Suhum constituency. And then there's also one more individual that we need to introduce to you, Musa Superior, who's the current Deputy Chief Executive Officer for the Forestry Commission. Well, earlier today, my colleague Samuel Kujo-Brace caught up with Charles Bissue on his plans to contest for the General Secretary position of the party.
Welcome to the AM show. We are talking to a very important person within the New Patriotic Party and someone who is running for the position of the General Secretary of the party. He is someone who was given the opportunity to ensure that we are able to regulate our small-scale mining sector. He and the team did quite a job there, but today they've given it to other people to also continue. We are here to have some chit-chat with him. He's no other person than the man Charles Cromwell Nana Benyin Onya Wonto. That's a name that is fascinating. Onya the Wonto, you know, you cannot buy a brother. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. You?
Good, thank you.
Many people do not know that you have a legal background as well. You have a legal background. You've done your PhD.
I'm still pursuing my PhD.
But you have a legal background.
Yes.
Wow.
I did up to the master's in law.
Law level. You're a man of many parts then.
Yes, I am. I try to. Because in our society you need to be experienced, and that through the nurturing, my nurturing, I was actually privileged to actually come into contact with a lot of people whom, for example, when I lived in the UK, all the people that I lived with were lecturers in the university. Professor Woodman, who was one of the main architects behind the interstate succession law, PNDC law 111 and all that. He's a white person, but he was married to my auntie, so I lived with him. Alan Dietz, who was also a lecturer, another white person. Professor John Hall, he was head of botany department at the Legon, University of Legon. So all these men, I lived with them, and I learned a lot from them. So I took education very serious when I was in the UK. Because when I went there, I was a young, around 21 years old. And you know, when in that part of the world, you go there and everything was at your disposal. So you can either choose that way or this way. And for the nurturing that I went through with them, they took me through. I think that shaped me as well. Yeah.
What is your memorable achievement at the committee where you were trying to regulate the small-scale mining sector?
Okay, that job itself was, you know, the president stated it in his manifesto, the NPP manifesto, when we're going in the run-up to the 2016 election, that he was going to restructure, sanitize and restructure the artisanal small-scale mining sector. So when Ghanaians actually voted for him and the New Patriotic Party, he appointed me as a presidential staffer, and then we agreed that I have to be measured in terms of my performance and all that. So he gave me that job after it formed a committee comprising of 10 ministers, and then my job was to coordinate all the ministries and the agencies to ensure that we sanitize the artisanal and small-scale mining sector, and then we restructure it, and we did a good job training 4,500 artisanal and small-scale mining workers in Takwa School of Mines. We brought in the drones. We vetted over 1,350 licenses, considered to one license owned about 4 concessions. So it was a mess. And then that came about because of bureaucracy, whom you know and all that, you know, the system here. So the government trying to solve the problem so that it is actually, everyone is served, diligently, and then everyone benefits from what the government is doing. So that was basically some of the jobs that we did. We brought in the European Space Agency to zoom into our concessions to see how devastated they were. And then we brought sanity into it, because most of the excavators were actually retrieved from the mine site. You can attest to the fact that even some of the river bodies were actually getting better. One thing is that the river bodies, you cannot tell how long it took for the destruction or whatever to occur, so you cannot actually put timelines on them. So, but then we did what we have to do, because the mandate was, the committee was an ad hoc one. So once you finish with your job, then it reverts to the various ministries. So now the Lands and Natural Ministry, led by Honorable Abu Dinapo, actually doing it. All we have to do is implement them well, and then ensure that the monitoring is done. We also, during that time, the roadmap that we came up with had the community mining in there, the alternative livelihood plan, how we export gold, the revenue that we generate from there, and all that, access to finance for the miners, the insurance bit. We wanted all the miners to have insurance, and then a whole lot. They were all contained in the roadmap, which is being implemented by the ministry now. So, and I think they're adding some innovative bits to it, but the most important thing is ensuring that the monitoring is done, and then we sustain that, and I think we'll get there.
Yeah, the roadmap had community mining as part of it. How sustainable is that?
Oh, you know, I remember I went to the mining in Daba in South Africa, Cape Town, with the president in 2019, and I had the Deputy Minister of Mines. On that occasion, Ramaphosa, the president, was there, and the Deputy Minister of Mines said that in the diamond sector, the illegal mining is called Zama Zama, Dear Galamsey. And he said they've adopted the community mining. And that's when I thought, okay, what we're doing here, it's actually being, exported to South Africa. Because I worked with a lot of university professors, Professor Kuma, the former Vice Chancellor of UMAT, Professor Mankwa, now the Vice Chancellor, Professor Megbe, Alasan, Yakubu, yes, and then a lot of professors, Professor Simmons, they all came, and then I had Dr. Adwa and Dr. Akrofi, all from tech, and then they came in and worked with us, and they helped in putting the roadmap together. So you had a lot of experts within that, and I commend them, because they didn't even charge the state. You know, when this is more like a consultancy work, where we feel that the system is actually not too good, and then they come in and they said they came in with a nationalistic approach to say that this is for us, and what they did was that I didn't even know their political background. You understand? But we brought them together and they did the job, because in the interest of Ghana. Now the community mining is very sustainable, because what we put together, it involves the chiefs, the district, the investor, and the miners themselves. And I believe that that's what the Lands Ministry is doing, because following that scandal, I stepped aside for investigations to carry on. So I didn't go closer to anything to do with the committee or the Lands Ministry. I wanted them to do, I wanted to be seen not to be interfering in anything at all. You know that I'm the first person within the president's government to step aside when when I heard about the allegations came out for them to, and the police exonerated me for that. So I haven't actually gone into it, but I know that what we put down, if implemented to the letter, will benefit all of us, and especially those miners in the rural areas where they do not have other jobs. But then also you realize that if most of the people paid the PNDC law 218, the small-scale mining was actually made to be the preserve of Ghanaians, to create jobs for people. So if you're not, mining is not preserved for you, it's not something that you want to, then there's an alternative livelihood for you within your community. So all that was provided for within that, the roadmap.
Do you feel hurt by how things unfold for you to step aside? Because I know you had certain things you wanted to do in the small-scale mining space. Do you feel what happened really?
You know, I even my PhD, I started my PhD in the industrialization area where the Ghana Beyond Aid, from the colonial era to the current era. That's what my proposal was on, and I started for about 6 months. And then when following the South Africa thing, and then a lot of people from Sweden, Norway, Malawi, they used to come to the Interministerial Committee to interview me and then take it to the country. So I think that's when I realized that no, this thing is a gap that we're filling for people to actually tap into. So I switched my PhD from that to sustainable development, the topic, that's what it is, and then the sustainable development in the small-scale mining sector in Ghana. That's what I'm writing about. So if you say I feel hurt, no, it actually helped me to actually focus on something to help the community. But if you say hurt, I'll use hurt in another sense, in the sense that you were doing a good job for your country. You believe that whatever you're doing was going to inure to the benefit of the masses, and then you were